Rain sheeted the bay windows of a Victorian on the terraces. A brass pendulum in the study marked the quarter arc past 10 before 10. Harlan Fosse turned at a dry scrape of wood. A shape stepped through paneling that had been wall. A weight rose. The door, locked from inside, held its breath. Knox folded out of the fog at the lamplit driveway, charcoal peacoat drawn against the weather. Servants in black moved among 12 guests at the cocktail hour. Leen waited in the first-floor gallery, tablet open, black coffee in her free hand. Knox turned his watch face in and stepped inside. The housekeeper's scream pulled them to the first-floor study. The door was locked from inside. A constable shouldered the latch. Harlan Fosse lay face down across the desk. A brass letter opener rested on the carpet a yard from his right hand. Leen photographed the scene. The paneling behind the desk read, "To every eye in the gallery, as original wall." In the Ashvale PD morgue, Dr. Iona Hale pulled the drawer. She lowered her gold wire-rimmed glasses half an inch down her nose and read the body flat. Time of death was 22 minutes before 10. Body temperature had cooled more slowly than the ambient room allowed, as if the space around him held warmth it should not have. She noted it once and offered no speculation. Mara Quinn waited at the iron gate in her forest green wool coat, press badge on the lapel, leather notebook open against her forearm. She asked whether the victim's business partner was still inside the house. Leen deflected without breaking stride. Mara wrote the question down. She did not leave. Knox and Leen walked the study slowly. The room measured smaller than the gallery outside implied. Bookshelves ran floor to ceiling along the east wall. A brass-handled cabinet stood against the paneling behind the desk. The fire was still warm. On the mantel, the pendulum kept its slow arc, indifferent to the body and to the guests beyond. Mrs. Tilda Pry, the housekeeper, steadied her hands on her apron. She said no one had crossed the gallery between the cocktail call and her scream. She named each guest by position in the drawing room at the minute of the strike. She meant the positions exactly, and she did not blink when she listed them. Jasper Veyle, the host, poured brandy with a level hand. He admitted an argument with Harlan at 6 about tax filings for the old Harrow Gallery conversion. He said he had ended the call, dressed for dinner, and had not seen Harlan again. He did not break eye contact. His shirt cuffs were unblooded. Ennis Moore, an investor, conceded he had handled the brass letter opener at the cocktail hour, turning it in his palm while a servant refilled his glass. He said the small nick on the grip was where his nail always caught. He apologized for sweating. He did not ask what had killed Harlan. Brenna Ash, Harlan's assistant, answered from the library. She had taken dictation in the west sitting room until 9:40, visible to 2 servants. Her ink-stained fingers braced a stenographer's ledger whose timestamp line matched the cocktail service minute by minute. Her voice stayed level when she named each entry. Silas Orne, the architect, described the 6-week renovation in quiet, precise sentences. New moldings, refinished floors, the brass-handled cabinet relocated from the drawing room. He said the study's footprint had not been altered by so much as a quarter inch. He drank soda water. He did not sit down. Leen bagged the letter opener from beneath the bookshelf. Under lamplight, the blade ran a hair's width too narrow for the wound Hale had recorded. A fleck of Ennis's thumbnail sat caught in an older grip scratch. The blood on the tip was fresh but thin, as if wiped and reapplied by a hand too careful to be angry. Leen pulled Jasper's phone log on the tablet. A 6-minute call with Harlan at 6:02, heated by the audio spike. The forensic clean recording ran on the gallery's tax abatement filing and nothing else. The word partition did not appear in it. The word study did not appear in it either. Knox stood by the study door and flicked the brass switch. The sconces on the east wall answered. On the evening's printed program, a crosshatch floor plan showed that same switch serving the west wall lamps. Knox tapped his left forefinger against his thumb. 1, 2, 3, and said nothing yet to Leen. Knox stopped at the brass-handled cabinet behind the desk. On the lower hinge sat a faint crescent of condensation, the width of a man's thumb. The ghost of warm metal moved through cold corridor air within the last hour. Temporal mismatch, precise and small. He did not mention it aloud. Leen across the room did not notice. Knox knelt at the baseboard beneath the east wall paneling. A thin, fresh dust line ran parallel to the floor, 1 finger's width from the skirting, bright where the old settled dust had been swept back by something sliding along it. He photographed the line without a word, rose and moved on. At the Ashvale PD evidence room, Rook Cho took the small brass hinge fragment Knox had carried in from the baseboard. He did not look up. He logged it, sealed it, signed it. If it was not in the bag, he said flat, it had not happened. He turned back to the tray. Mara returned at the precinct steps with a tip from the Courier's archives. Silas Orne had closed 3 prior renovations, each followed within a year by an insurance payout on a suspicious structural fault. She handed Leen the clipping and kept her own copy. Knox filed the 3 names before she finished speaking. Knox spread the evening's program beside the study on the library table. On the printed floor plan, the gallery to study corridor measured 17 feet 4 inches. He stepped it off with Leen, heel to toe, 14 feet flat. The east wall of the study had gained 42 inches of depth the drawing did not promise. The pendulum swings. The minute hand does not move. Minutes don't lie. People do. Knox asked Mrs. Pre to set her hand on the wall that had held the fireplace mantel 5 weeks ago. Without hesitation, she pointed to the paneling where the mantel still seemed to sit. Knox placed his palm flat against it. The sound that answered from behind the wood was hollow, a long, slow drum. Silas, watching from the gallery, did not blink. Leen stopped Knox at the stair landing. Quietly, without temper, she asked whether a sliding wall and a ring of condensation absent a witness was enough to walk a man out of this house in cuffs. Knox turned his watch face out. He did not answer. The lamps ticked in their shades. Knox walked the corridor a second time, a brass ruler held against the paneling. At the east corner, the partition gave by 1½ inches under pressure. The corridor had narrowed exactly 42 inches from the program's floor plan. He tapped his left forefinger against his thumb. 1, 2, 3. Knox laid the hinge fragment, the condensation photo, the dustline photo, the printed floor plan, and the evening's program across the library table in order. The timeline settled in his head beat by beat. He turned the silver signet ring on his left hand once. He was ready. The 12 guests gathered. Knox walked the timeline. Jasper's 6:02 call. Gallery taxes, partition never named. Annis at the piano at 9:30, the letter opener too narrow for Hal's wound. Brenna at dictation until 9:40. Ledger behind her. At 9:38, a cabinet hinge left a condensation ring. A dust line at the east baseboard. The corridor had lost 42 inches. One man had drawn the new walls. Silas Orne. Silas set the brandy glass down on the lamp table with a level hand. From beneath his signet ring, he tipped a small glass capsule under his tongue and held Knox's eyes quite calm. He said nothing. By the time Leen crossed the room, his knees had already given way, and the brandy on the table had not yet rippled still. Leen closed the case file on the library table. The servants had gone. The fire had burned down to its last embers. Knox stood near the body and did not speak. Outside, the fog pressed the bay windows flat. On the mantel, the pendulum did not stop. Knox stood alone on the first-floor gallery after the estate had cleared. Between his gloved fingers, he turned the small brass hinge fragment in the lamplight, weighing it like a coin he had not yet decided to spend. Fog rolled against the bay windows and settled. He turned his watch face in and watched the minute hand travel on.